Hello, puppies and kittens. We got a little bit of a special thing here. I'm talking tonight with Brian Dalton, better known to some of you as Mr. Deity. He runs the Mr. Deity channel, which is really good stuff and really funny. If you want to find another avenue, if you're not familiar with him, check out his channel and his stuff. Most recently, Mr. Deity, you did a series on Alex O'Connor's recent interview with Ion Hersey Ali, and that reminded me of a number of experiences that I've had with people, that the few times that you can verify that somebody is actually an atheist or was actually an atheist, and then for whatever reason they go religious. It always strikes me that when people were already religious and then they lose their faith, I'm keen to hear why. What was the catalyst? What was it that got you thinking? And then, because I'm a man of reason, when people go back to their faith, I want to know what the reason for that is too. But I
Right.
noticed the believers don't really care either way.
That is so true, by the way. When I left religion, I was still working with and for and very good friends with Dennis Prager of PragerU infamy. And we had one conversation where I was still freaked out at the time because the last thing in the world I wanted to be was an atheist. I didn't have the right clothing. I didn't have the shag carpeting. I was monogamous, all of that stuff. And I was freaked out because I read the Atheist Debater's Handbook just because he had encouraged me to write a book on God from the Mormon point of view, but he'd also taught me you always need to know the other side of everything. And as I started writing it, I realized I really don't know that much about atheism. So I went to the library, checked out this book, freaked out, called him, said, you gotta get me out of this. And I assumed he'd know, how to get me out of it. And we went and played racquetball. And then on the drive home, we chatted. And it became very clear that he didn't really know the other side. There's certain nomenclature that I became familiar with, and I was kind of using it, and it was befuddling him. And then it got super awkward because I realized he wasn't going to save me. I realized on that car ride, I'm going to be an atheist. And I hated that idea. I was horrified. I didn't want to be a communist. I didn't want to be a pornographer, any of that stuff. So I didn't enjoy the taste of babies. So I freaked out, and we had a really awkward rest of that ride home. And then he never wanted to hear anything else. He never reached out to me again as I became an atheist. Nobody, in fact, nobody within the church. I sent my letter of resignation in. I handed it to my bishop. I thought he would open it in my presence. He didn't. I got a letter later saying your blessings are going to dissolve, all your temple rights and blessings, endowment, and all that kind of stuff. And no one ever said another thing to me. They were like, well, see ya. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So, I want to know. I'm like you. What was it? What was it?
Yeah, and similarly, it's not just I want to hear because the story, how you get into Christianity is always the same thing. I was emotionally distraught. I was
Right.
face down in the gutter, coke addict, whatever,
Don't forget the
crackhead,
Wi-Fi.
whatever the situation is. And in fact, there are atheists, well-known atheists, who have taken that exact route. I got emotionally distraught. I was on my last leg, and so I decided to adopt a completely irrational belief, and I choose to believe shit that is not evidently true.
Right.
But it makes me feel all squishy inside, and now I get to lie for a living and tell people that I know things that I don't know.
I've always said that there are three kinds of believers and non-believers. There's the emotional believer, non-believer, the habitual believer or non-believer, and the philosophical believer, non-believer. And it seems to me like Ian went from an emotional believer to an emotional non-believer to an emotional believer again. And she didn't go back to her old religion. Her old religion was Islam. So now she's moved away from Islam and embraced Christianity, with the complete confusion and misunderstanding that so much of the bad stuff that she thought was horrible about Islam actually came from the earlier Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah.
She seems completely clueless about that stuff, and it's clear to me that she's bought into Tom Holland's bullshit. You know, this book Dominion.
It's important to mention also that when,
Mhm.
when we're talking about Islam didn't just take the evil from the Old Testament. They took an awful lot of evil from the New.
Right. As Hitch pointed out I have a clip of Hitch. The real reason I made the series is when I watched it, I was kind of like, okay, she's had a rough time. I get it, and I'm okay with that. But then when she when she lied about Hitch, she either lied about Hitch or she didn't know anything about Hitch and his views on religion and Christianity in particular. But she says stuff in that interview that really pissed me off. Like, you can't say that about Hitch. He was talking about Islam. No, he was not. He was not. And I've got the clip to prove it. And it's in I think video 4 or 5 of this series.
That is
Where
a
Hitch,
frustrating thing when you defend the faith. I noticed this. I mean, let me preface. Let me go back a little bit. We're not only talking about Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
right.
She is a central focus. She's what we're ultimately going to be talking about. But there's a number of other things that got us here. There was a time in my youth when I first realized that I myself was an atheist. When I discovered that an atheist is not someone who necessarily knows that there is no God, because that means you know things you don't
Right.
know necessarily. But this is what my thought process at the time. I now actually know enough about this that I can say that I know that there is no God the exact same way and for the same reasons, to the same degree that I know that there are no leprechauns.
Right.
That's the position I take on this. I mean, so is it possible that I could be wrong? Well, not really, but I'm going to try to pretend that there's that, you know.
Right.
But I know better. Is it possible there could be leprechauns? Same thing. I mean,
Right.
honestly, it's the same
Right.
thing.
Right.
So when I realized that I was an atheist, that an atheist was somebody that simply did not believe in a God, I realized that I'd been an atheist for 15 years and didn't know it. And all this time I didn't know what to call myself. I mean, I actually described myself once upon a time. I said I was an agnostic pagan for Christ, because I hadn't read enough of Christ yet to know that, okay, well, let's go with agnostic pagan, but definitely not for Christ. Not after I
Right.
read the shit,
Right.
and then the pagan fell apart too. And then the agnostic wasn't so much anymore. No, I'm just straight up atheist.
Right.
But um, I used to be told, or I used to have this impression, a lot of us did back then, that atheists do not convert to religions. And I was shocked to see that, in fact, that does happen on occasion.
Yeah.
But here's the issue, and I apologize if there's a little bit of a story that goes with this, because I have a few examples. The first person that I talked to who we could verify actually was an atheist, because a lot of people say, well, I was a card carrying Orthodox atheist. No, you fucking weren't.
Right.
Right? I mean, what is it, that kid from Growing Pains, Kirk Cameron?
Kirk Cameron. Yeah.
Yeah, who said he was an Orthodox atheist or some such
Yeah.
similar shit,
Yeah.
until he prayed to God. Well, if you're praying to God, then not an atheist.
Just the term Orthodox atheist tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I mean, are you really sending letters to Santa? It's the same thing. So before you put that envelope in the mail, you think somebody's going to read this.
Right.
So I got to talk to somebody that we could actually verify this person was an atheist and is now declaring herself to be Christian. And I have to know why.
Right.
And she said, there was so much bullshit in it. She's like, well, I just looked at the evidence. What evidence? Well, I just explored the facts. What facts? Would not say.
Right.
I had a very combative interaction with her on a radio show where it went on for 20 minutes, where she's ducking and dodging, and she's just, the evidence, the facts, whatever. She won't tell me what the thing was that changed her mind. We finally got to the meat of it. She was a college student. She was 19 and 19 or 20, and she meets the people for at the table for the camp Christian Crusade, Campus Crusade for Christ, something similar to that.
Right.
And she said that the boys that were running that stand were hot. And that was it. That was
Well,
her
a lot of
conversion.
people, you've got the Lee Strobel and the J. Warner Wallace path where the wife converts, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, indeed. By the way, for anybody wondering, I'm drinking a pumpkin stout. Here we go, 12% ABV.
Wow, that looks like me.
Anyway,
That's tricky.
there was another one. There was at one of the American Atheist events. There was a special guest that was announced that there would be a special guest, but they wouldn't say who the person was. And it turned out that it was some southern, I think, Florida preacher that decided she was atheist. So she comes out as atheist at the event. And we're all impressed. Yay, you've woken up out of the stupor, whatever. But here's the thing. A few months into her celebrity as the preacher that became an atheist, she did something that in religion you do all the time, but it doesn't play well in atheism. As a religious apologist, you are expected to alter the facts as necessary, to enhance things, to make the story better. You know what I'm saying? Just embellish a little bit, exaggerate, lie. That's what religion, all religion is. There's no truth to any religion, but there's a hell of a lot of lies in all of them. And so she copped to having an academic degree that she did not actually have. And when it was exposed that she did not actually have this degree, that she lied about it, atheists, it's a funny thing. We're so much different than believers. We don't like to be lied to.
Right.
Religious people often tell me, well, what's wrong with lying? Why does it have to be true before I believe it? They don't care what the truth is.
Right.
If you do, then you're in my position. You're not going to be pretending to know things you don't know.
Right.
And so on. So she did. She got called out. She got caught. And so then suddenly she missed her congregation and returned to her faith. Why? Because she got caught lying by people who don't like lies.
Right.
And that was the end of her story. And I've got a few more, but I've talked enough already. So I'm going to let you go.
Well, we've had another recent one. I really do think this is part of I made a video last month about Christians getting desperate. And I do think there's some major desperation here. Justin Brierley wrote a book called The Surprising Rebirth of Faith. And it's amazing. He's been going out and pushing it. And then when he's asked, what are the facts that show that there's this surprising rebirth? Well, actually, I don't have any. And in fact, all the charts that I show in my book show it actually going the opposite way. But and he refers to people like Tom Holland, who, if you don't know who he is, I did a whole series on him last December in his book, Dominion, where they're trying to say that Christianity is responsible for the morals and values of modernity that were totally Enlightenment inspired. And if you know anything about the Enlightenment, it was not a religious movement, not at all. In fact, so many of the books by Enlightenment authors were put on the index of prohibited books by the Catholic Church. And Protestants did the same. They didn't care for the Enlightenment thinkers at all. But now they're trying to say, oh, we need to go back to Christianity because Christianity gave us the Enlightenment, which is just so much bullshit. I can't stand it. And I'll be doing a video on that. More on that next month. But she's been caught up in it. Philip Goff, who was an atheist philosopher, kind of a panpsychist type, he has converted to Christianity. But in both of their cases, when you look at Ayan's initial essay that she wrote about converting to Christianity, and in Goth's, and I made a video about this last month too, so you can watch that as well. Be sure to
be sure to reference people to the specific video that you made when you're talking about it, please. I
Okay.
want you to sell your channel.
What is it called? I'll have to look it up real quick in just a second
Okay.
while you're talking, but not that I won't be paying attention to you, uh, but they're at the top of my list anyway, so because it's recent. But both of them, Philip Goff doesn't believe in an omnipotent God. He doesn't believe in a physical resurrection. He doesn't believe in a penal substitution. I mean, right there, that's the core of Christianity, especially the penal substitution part. But no physical resurrection, no all powerful God, and somehow he thinks that gets solves fine tuning, which I think is BS anyway. And what's the other thing it's supposed to solve? Oh, the problem of evil, which is bullshit, because if you've still got your omniscience and your omnibenevolence, and you know you're going to create a world where people are going to horribly suffer without their consent, you don't create that world. I mean, it's just so stupid. And this is a professional philosopher. Then you have Ayan talking about Christianity as a way to push back against the authoritarianism of Putin and Xi, and Islam, of course. She's still going after Islam, just like she did when she was an atheist. So there's really no difference there. But then she wants to go after the woke as well. And supposedly Christianity is the way to do that. There was hardly a mention of Jesus in her essay. I think Richard.
And I don't get why people are upset at the woke. Do they even know what the fuck the woke is?
No, nobody does. Nobody does.
Yeah, well, my understanding was that there are people who have to endure adversity that maybe I, as a cisgendered white heterosexual male, might not have to experience to the degree that some other demographics do.
Right.
Right. And so I'm aware that there's a disparity, and like at least with regard to how people are seen by police or employers or what have you.
Right.
So me being aware that other people face a little bit more adversity than I do, that's what woke originally meant.
Right.
And I don't know what the fuck people have turned it into, or how being woke suddenly became bad. How is it bad to have compassion for other people?
Right.
I'm lost.
Right. Right. So, but it's whatever you can say about any of that. What you can't say is that these two people are really talking about. I mean, Philip Goff would be burned at the stake 400 years ago if he came out with his ideas about God not being omnipotent. He'd be right next to Giordano Bruno. God's not omnipotent. There's no physical resurrection and penal substitution. He says it's ridiculous. He thinks it's one of the most ridiculous ideas ever, which I agree. It absolutely is. And it's immoral on top of it that somebody else takes your sins. And then just the thought that you need a blood sacrifice, like an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving deity needs blood. It's just so people in animal skin sitting around the campfire. It's the stupidest idea ever. And God is supposed to be the greatest being we can conceive of, with the greatest ideas conceivable. But this is what he's going to do. He's going to take on a human body and have himself tortured so he can forgive us, because he can't forgive us otherwise. Aaron, I can forgive you. Like, if you hurt my feelings in this stream, I don't need blood. I can just forgive you.
There are people that I know in my life who have forgiven me when they didn't have to.
Exactly. Yes.
And I'm glad that they found it in themselves to do that.
Right.
And I try to be the same.
Almost all of us have been there.
Yeah.
We've gotten the forgiveness we didn't deserve, and we've probably forgiven others who didn't necessarily deserve it.
Didn't have to kill anyone.
No one got murdered or tortured. I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? We're so much better than this omnibenevolent being. It just kills me. I mean,
so one of the other examples that I know of for a former atheist who became a believer, I had him on my show. I had a long conversation with him, and I still don't know why he became a believer. I asked as many probing questions as I knew to do at the time, and it seemed that he just decided that you can't prove there's a God, so therefore you can't prove there's not a God, so therefore there is one.
Yeah.
If I want to pretend that there is one, I can pretend that there is one. And so now that guy declares that he's a Christian.
Yeah.
Why? That makes no fucking sense. But as I
And,
said, the rationality and truth, this was a big one for me. This is having a hard time relating to this. Truth doesn't mean this, it doesn't have the same meaning or value for believers as it does for non-believers. That's the best way I can put it.
right. Right.
I don't want to be fooled, tricked into believing or misled into believing things that are not evidently true. I don't want to believe anything that isn't true. So it would be better to believe nothing
Right.
than to believe something that isn't true and thus be fooled. But these people say, well, if you can't prove it wrong, then I get to boldly announce that it's right. No, that's a lie. When you say things are true that are you don't know to be true, that's like making up statistics on the spot. And then telling people, well, you can't prove that it's not 98.6. No, that's not how that works.
Right.
But as I said, honesty just doesn't seem to matter with religious belief.
Well, so much of it, and Ian is the perfect case of this, because the whole one of the reasons I made this series is because she's been out talking about why she became a Christian since she wrote her initial essay. And in every one of them, there is a heartrending tale of how she was in a pit of despair. And every time I say that, I feel the need to put up the photo of the albino from Princess Bride. But she was in a pit of despair, horribly depressed. She turned to alcohol to soothe herself and become an alcoholic.
Well, I understand that,
Wanted
but I've turned to alcoholism for political reasons.
Good for you. That's the best way to go. But she literally said she wanted to kill herself, but she didn't have the courage to do so. Which I say, oh, God, this the one time in life where I'm thrilled someone was a coward. So she talked about this in a very emotional way and talked about how, and even in the interview, she admits that it was a very personal thing. I was in a pit of despair, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But then she starts going on and talking shit about atheists and atheism and acting like she really went to Christianity because there are all kinds of good reasons. And they're all post hoc. They're fortifications because she doesn't want to lose the thing that made her feel better. And I totally get it. But don't gaslight us. That's the name of this series, by the way. Ian is gaslighting us. And the other two were called Religion Makes Philosophers Stupid. And then The More, just The More, because that's what these two people are both focused in on. They think they just have an intuition that there's something more than the natural world and all that. And maybe there is. I don't know. For all we know, we're one universe in an infinite series of universes, or just a small part of a larger cosmos, or whatever, or a simulation. There's a billion different ideas that we can't rule out. But if we can't know anything about them, what the hell is the point? And you cannot know anything about God and the supernatural. There is no way for you to know with any degree of certainty God's existence, his will, his character, which is why I call myself an atheist. I just don't care because there's nothing we can know about it. And there's no predictions, and there's no novel predictions we can make. You should be able to make all kinds of novel predictions, by the way, based on what Jesus told his followers they would be able to do. One of them is they should be able to heal the sick. They should be able to raise the dead because Jesus gave followers those powers. Paul did it. Barnabas did it. A lot of people will say, oh, he was only talking to the 12. Well, they weren't in the 12. They got the powers to raise the dead and heal the sick and all this kind of stuff. Believers should be able to do that based on what Jesus said. Or how about he should have returned already before those people he was talking to died? because that's what he said. I'm coming back while yet some will tarry, or however he put it. I don't know.
Someone in the chat just asked, what is an apatheist? An apatheist is somebody who doesn't care if there's a God.
I don't care if a God, even if God exists. I have a whole series called the God Distraction. Why
Now,
I don't care if God about God, even if he does exist.
there's another person I want to bring up, and I don't want to name names.
Yeah.
But there was somebody that I used to think of as a friend way back when. You remember when you and I, not the first time we met, but when we met in Australia
Yes.
for the American Atheist thing in Melbourne?
It's one of my favorite memories in life.
I know that you met Ion, or you should have met Ion.
I didn't get a chance to meet her.
Okay, she was in the room next to us. Remember that swanky penthouse that we were in, and like everybody that all these big names in it. Dan Dennett was there. Just like there was just a ton of people, big names are in this penthouse for this amazing party. And as we're going into it, as we're filing into this room, Ion is going into the room next to us. And we're pleading with her, hey, come to look who's here. Let's come on, you. And she's there with her bodyguard. She just smiles at us nicely. The funny thing is that one of the people who were there, one of the people who met Ion, has since taken the same road Ion took.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was you're not one name names?
One no. Was one, and you've met this person, I know.
Okay.
Because they were at that party.
Okay.
But
we oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Okay.
It might even be their room that we were in.
It was. Yes.
Yeah. So that person had a little money at the time, was donating to the atheist cause, and then at some point, something happened in their head. I don't know what it was. But the next time I heard from them, what I got was that they now think that evolution is a hoax perpetuated by satanic Masons. And that reality isn't real.
Of course.
And that the world, this was proven. And I can't get this person to understand it. Look, if you just Google it for a second and look at all these different sites that says there is no proof of this. Right. Why the hell are you telling me things are proven when they're not? Why are you telling me that this is a hoax when I have a degree in evolution? I've been in the field. I've done research in the lab. I can show you evolution in action. We can prove this any way you want to. There are no Masons involved in this. I said that the pioneers of evolutionary theory were almost all of them Christian, and many of our best defenders of evolutionary theory today still are Christian. They're not Masons. They're not Satanists. And I realize I'm a Satanist because I paid the $25 to join the Satanic Temple, but the Satanic Temple is an entirely atheist organization. They don't believe in Satan. Right. And neither do I. The Satanic Temple doesn't have beliefs. Right. So just for the few people who are infinitely confused about that, I just have to throw out that clarification. But then this person, this former friend of mine, starts lying to me about proofs, plural, of intelligent design. They can't even begin to explain why any of this actually would be evidence for a God or against evolution. They have no idea. Peter, your screen has changed. Everything all right?
Hey, sorry, I have no idea. I have no idea why that happened, but I fixed it.
Yeah, well, it's the Masons.
Could it be Jackie Mason? Maybe it was Jackie Mason who arranged all of this. Because he was always talking like this.
Apparently, you know the person I'm talking about.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I met Ian at that same event, which I think is just ironic.
Wow.
That they're both taking the same course and that the arguments are so bad. I mean, really bad. And in both cases, it's, well, you know, I had all this money, and then suddenly after I gave it all away, I don't have any more. Do you think? I get it.
That happens. I've heard of that happening before.
Yeah. So that makes you decide that
lemonade. I drank all my lemonade the other day, and then I didn't have any lemonade. But I'm going to go get some more after we get off.
Yeah, enough about that. We have just lying to me about things I can prove otherwise.
Right.
And they will not answer a direct question. You can't have a Socratic interaction. There is no way to reason. If I cite any scientist or philosopher, it's because they're all part of the conspiracy. They're one of the controlled.
Right.
What the fuck happened to your head?
Well,
I don't know how to interpret that. I mean, here's a person that I think has just flat out lost their mind.
Yeah. I think it's such a basic thing. If reason didn't take you to the dance, reason ain't taking you home. So if you're there for the comfort, if you're there because your existential angst has gotten the better of you, and I totally get that. I understand that. Like when I left religion, I had 2 years of trying to get my faith back because I laid down at night and I closed my eyes and all I saw was Nietzsche's abyss and myself falling into it. And I had to come to terms with that. It was hard when you've been taught your whole life that your life has no meaning, no purpose, or any of that without God. And then all of a sudden you find yourself without God. It's horrible. Now, I don't know if Ayan went through that on that level, but from her own speaking, she was just a mess. And this is the other thing that drives me nuts about her interview and her coming out and speaking about all this stuff, because no one imagines that the best time to make life-changing decisions is when you're emotionally compromised and wishing for death. You know, I mean, nobody is in their right mind if you're wanting to check out here. Evolution has programmed us to just, if nothing else, survive. And you're wanting to check out, hey, let's make some life-changing decisions, or let's just, you know, take the pill and be soothed and eased into it. And I just had a patron. I was supposed to upload part 8 of this thing to my patrons and I forgot, but there is a power.
I was going to ask you about that because you told me what was going to be in the next episode, and I'm eager to see that next episode.
I'm going to do that right off we get here, right when we get off here. But I ended.
Remember to check out Mr. Deity's channel. It's really good stuff. All of his old stuff is good too. The videos we're talking about tonight, however, are all recent.
Yes, and if you want to see them immediately, you will have to become a patron, but they will come out over the course of this next week, next 4 weeks, on YouTube for everybody. But
becoming a patron of this man is not a bad idea.
It's not.
Somehow, this man is personal friends with Bill Nye the Science Guy and Dennis Prager. How the fuck?
Hey, you know what? I just before I got on here, I got a YouTube notification saying that today is the 18th anniversary of my YouTube channel. So there we go. There's another reason to become a patron. I've been doing this way too long. But the point I was making is that I ended the series with about a minute 40-second long clip of Hitch talking. I cannot believe I found this clip because there's so much Hitch on YouTube. And somehow when I was looking for stuff, I stumbled onto this clip. And I mean, if you want to think about providence, you want to think somebody's up there directing you. This clip is almost like he is speaking from the grave right to Ayan or the urn. I don't know whether he went where he went, but it's so just like right to her, talking about her exact situation. And it's unbelieving. I mean, it's just so perfect. I've never been so thrilled about finding a clip of anyone, because it was just like, here, he made this for you years and years before he died. he somehow knew that you were going to do this silly thing, and this is what he has to say to you. I mean, it's just as perfect as anything I've ever found. It's amazing to me. But
the person that had that room that we had that big party in next to Ayaan Hirsi Ali, all of these weird coincidences and everything, that person started accusing me of having said all these things I never would have said. That they thought I was admitting things about why my name is Aron-Ra and how I was part of some great conspiracy from. I'm like, you're absolutely mad.
If it's
I never said any of this crap.
Yeah, if it's the person I'm thinking of, I've gotten into it with him too on Twitter about different things. But
all right, enough of that person.
Yes,
I want to hear more about Goff and your analysis of Ayaan. I by the way, I talked to I shared a couple messages with Alex O'Connor tonight, and I said that as far as I was concerned, because I don't want to criticize somebody for doing something better than I would have done it.
Right.
So I told him that I said, I think you did and everything you could or should, given the circumstances. I wouldn't have done a better job than he did. So it's not his fault.
Right.
He got Ayaan to say things that we can judge her position on what she said.
Right.
He's not reprimanding her. He's not correct. Now I would have, because I'm not as good at this as he is.
Right.
I just wouldn't have been able to resist the temptation.
I start my whole series by saying, I joke with him a little because I love Alex. I think Alex is a tremendous thinker and podcaster and YouTuber, and he's been amazing since he was like 17. It's just
right.
This kid is amazing. I love him. I love him and Steven.
Yeah. Have you met them?
I have not met either. I have not met.
I've had the distinct pleasure of having dinner with both of these gentlemen together at the same time.
They're both so awesome.
A number of times, I'm proud to say.
And I watch everything they release. I never miss out on anything.
Steven's content is bewilderingly good.
He released a great one today on Giordano Bruno. Everyone should watch that. And I give him a hard time about it. In fact, I started calling his Within Reason podcast the Without Pushback podcast, and I hope he knows it's in good fun, because I would have probably done exactly what he did. I might have pushed back a little more because I'm a prick, but knowing, well, you would have pushed back a lot because you're a bigger prick than I am. You might be the king of the pricks, by the way. I just want to put that out there. If there are nominations going on, he didn't really push back at all, and it's one of the reasons why I did feel compelled to make the series. That and the either the lying or just misrepresenting Hitch in the worst way.
I forgive him for that, because he did get her to say things.
Oh,
I mean, that's a tricky thing.
Yes,
when you're doing an interview, and it's important what their perspective is.
Yeah.
I've seen interviewers where they try to interject their own perspective, and the interview will be ruined because of it.
Right.
So I'm glad that Alex didn't necessarily try. Leave that to some of the rest of his critics.
Right.
Now that it's more important that we know what her position actually is and how bad it is.
Right.
The argument.
I don't feel
when she started talking about how atheists have a gospel that we believe in, the fuck we do. How do you not know better than that?
I know. I took her to task for that one too, because atheists are the least. They are the most scattered group of people I have ever dealt with in my life. There are no two atheists that think alike just about on anything other than the fact that the evidence for God is shit. And I say that in my series. I've been battered by that myself. You've been probably shit on by other atheists. I've been shit on by other atheists. Alex has, Dawkins has, Dennett, Sam, everybody has.
I won't even say that it's not
group.
I won't even say that it's not ever justified, because there there have been people that criticize me that actually have legitimately criticized me, where I realize, oh, well, they're right about this point.
Right.
And maybe all the rest of the shit that they said was wrong. But there's this and this that they said, and you know what? You're right about that. And there's a way to do this tactfully. There's a way to do this where I have more respect for you for having corrected me, and they don't always do that.
Yeah.
But
I've never personally had that experience myself, because I've always been right. But I think that's a beautiful thing. No, that's not true at all. No, I've been taken to task, and then I've realized, oh shit, I need to think more about this or that. Who doesn't? I mean, we're all just stupid people. We're evolved.
I had somebody. I'm not
apes.
I'm not even kidding about this. I mean, this is sincere. Somebody wrote a book about how I was wrong about something. I can't remember what.
Wow. Wow,
and
that's kind of an
I thought
honor.
that was a little bit overkill, especially when I eventually turned out to be right. But
yeah, that's kind of an honor, though, that you're at that peak. No one even notices me, so that's a blessing.
Well, this is why I want you to sell your channel, because you do quality stuff. I love your videos. I mean that sincerely. I have for more than a decade.
Yes. Well, thank you. Good. No, I appreciate that. But yeah, of course, we're all just trying to figure it out. And that's one of the things that I hate about religion so much, is it says, and she says this in her interview, I have the answer. I have the answer. Wait, and by the way, this happens just after she's chided atheists about being certain in their atheism. And she's talking about how closed-minded we are, and it keeps us from being curious and all that kind of stuff, because
she shut her curiosity down.
Yes.
Claiming to be curious, while claiming to have become curious at the moment that she shut her curiosity down.
My other favorite part is where she chides atheists, the new atheism, for being evangelical. And how evangelism...
Is that a direct attack against me personally?
I don't know, but evangelism supposedly ends curiosity, which I agree it does. It absolutely does. Christians weren't curious for like 1,200 years, 13, 14, 1,500 years. They weren't curious about the native peoples of America when they came here. They had their doctrine of discovery. It said, oh, they were subhuman. You could do whatever you want with them. And that's what they did. Genocide and rape and murder and slavery and taking their lands. When have Christians been curious? It's the weirdest idea in my mind. But she's this whole notion that it's the atheists who are not seeking. We don't even want the answers anymore. Well, the scientists who are doing the work of figuring out what the hell is going on, the leading scientists, if you look at every survey, they're non-believers. I'm sorry. They're curious as you know what, and they want to know the answers just like every atheist I know. I don't know an atheist who doesn't want science to move forward and to give us more answers, wherever those answers take us. If
it happens that I'm wrong, I would sure like someone to point out to me that I am wrong as early as possible. Absolutely. So that I can stop being wrong.
Absolutely. Yes. And that really is the difference, is you want to know if you're wrong, and religious people don't. I'm sorry to say that, they just don't. They're in it for the comfort. It just depends. I don't want to be unfair. I do think there are philosophical believers. I think they have bad reasons still, but they've really made an effort. But the habitual believer and the emotional believer, they're not interested. They're not interested at all. They just want to get what they get from it. And there's a big part of me that says, I get that. I understand that, because this place is a shithole. I mean, let's be honest. This place is a shithole. But
bed in tooth and claw.
Yes, and it would be nice if there were somewhere great that we all ended up after this mess. But the problem is the fact that it's a shithole. Doesn't it tell you everything about the being who supposedly created it? I mean, do you really need to know? This is one of the funny. I'm doing a video this month about the fact that, Mr. Deity turned off his all-knowingness, right? So of the three omnis, there's omniscience, omnipotence, omnibenevolence. So Mr. Deity turned off his omniscience. And I did that kind of as a joke because Harold Kushner years ago wrote a book called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And his idea about God was that he turned off his omnipotence, which is the same thing Philip Goff says. So he let go of his power and let all of this mess happen. Mr. Deity would never let go of his power, right? He's such a narcissist. He's such a prick. There's no way he's letting go of his power. But he turned off his omniscience because, for a number of reasons, the least of which is it ruins surprise parties and the endings of M. Night Shyamalan movies, even the good one, he says. And so
I'm glad you said even the good one, because they're all shit.
One. They really are. They're so bad. Oh my God. But The Sixth Sense is terrific. And I have to admit, I do like the other one with Bruce Willis. So he's got two that I like. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But no one ever looks at what I think is the obvious omni to ditch. If you're going to ditch one of the three omnis, isn't it obvious that you should be ditching omnibenevolence? I mean, you've got a supposedly all good God, and I love Aquinas on this. Aquinas said, if God's goodness is infinite, where is there room for evil? And it's such a beautiful, simple statement of it. Of course, he found a reason to ditch that.
Well, he has to. He's Aquinas. He's
an apologist. Of course. So
my perspective is that I thought that Epicurus shut this shit down 2,400 years ago.
Of course he did. Of course. Yes. But
we have to read some. I have to read some chats here, so I'm going to do that.
Oh, okay.
They're stacking up. Nowhart offers 50 Swedish kroner and says, former pantheist here. For me, it was all and only about emotions. Believing you are God is strangely comforting. Okay.
Yes.
Can't argue with that one. Then John O'Neill offers $5. Thank you. And says, Happy New Year, everybody. And there goes my dog. And then Shadow Noor offers $10 and 12%. A little confused. It says, thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, Shadow Noor. And then Milwaukee Atheists, friend of mine, offers $5 and says, I hope Aron-Ra uses this for rum, but we know he's going to use it on stout, IPA, or something else disgusting. Also, hi, Mr. Deity. Well, Milwaukee Atheists, I don't drink IPA ever, but I do have a bottle of rum right here at my feet. And it's, well, hold on. It's this one. And I will be having this shortly.
That's a lot of rum.
Anyway, yeah, well, not really. It doesn't last as long as you think.
You are a big guy. So
and then Letef offers $5 and says, wait, a live stream of Aaron and the almighty Mister? What an unexpected gift. There's somebody that knows your channel. There's not enough people that know your channel.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you.
And then Nowhart offers 50 Swedish kroner and says, to answer your question about woke hate, plenty of people, sadly, believe we live in a meritocracy and that compassion is useless.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with any comment more. That is so true.
Then Latefte offers €5 and says, this is a classic case of, as Stephen Woodford put it, cuckoo Christianity. And Stephen Woodford, if you're not familiar with his channel, practically everybody should be by now, but
rationality rules. Yeah,
exactly. And then Deconstructing Laura 42 offers $4.99 and says, Aaron, thank you so much for all that you do. Your videos on the flood were the final straw that broke my Christianity. I have learned so much from you. That message got me here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Deconstructing Laura 42. Okay, so we're caught up on this. and I still want to hear. And I know everybody should go back and watch the videos that you produced. The ones that you recently posted. If you can't see them yet, become a patron, and you can. But I want to hear more about your analysis, still of Goth, if you haven't covered everything about him, but definitely about Ian. I am so upset. I met her, and I was so proud. I was so looking forward to meeting her. I remember walking up to the table of all of the bigwigs, of Dan Dennett and Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, and saying, "Excuse me, I know I'm just an arrogant pissant in the in the atheist movement, but I want to get a selfie with Ion." And I got it.
Yeah.
And to hear the things that she said in that interview, I can't tell you how disappointed I am.
Yeah. She and Hitch are the only two that I didn't meet. And I had the opportunity to meet Hitch shortly before he died. He did a debate here with Sam and two rabbis, one of which I used to work for when I was back with Dennis Prager.
How do you know everybody?
It is weird. I have had this weird life where I kind of have met so many people who just happen to be, somehow. Anyway,
one of the side effects from living in Los Angeles, I guess.
Yeah. My patron had paid for me to go to the meetup afterwards. And when I went to go meet him, he was surrounded by people. And this was maybe a month, 6 weeks before he died. And he looked like hell. And I couldn't bring myself to waste a second of his time. I just couldn't do it. So I never got to meet Hitch. And Hitch. I mean, I say, on my shows all the time, I said, for Hitch's sake, he's become the guy. Hitch, bless you. He's such a hero of mine. I think he was amazing.
But here's an important thing we got to bring up. I know that I have political differences with Christopher Hitchens.
Right.
So and I knew that when he was alive, when I had opportunity to meet him, and it wouldn't matter because I look at what do we have in common. We have a common enemy. We have a common goal. We don't have to be perfectly aligned on every damn thing.
Who?
Yeah. And so the first time I had a chance to meet him, he had debated Bill Dembski in Prestonwood Baptist Church in Dallas.
Oh wow!
This church is so freaking big that I remember trying to find parking out there, and somebody was asking me where the debate was, and I said, "I think it's in the building closest to the runway." I mean, this is a massive fucking church, 7,500 seat stadium sanctuary. You remember when we went to the Melbourne Civic Center for the World Atheist event, the biggest atheist event ever?
Yeah,
there were 5,000 seats.
Right.
Prestonwood Baptist Church has 7,500 seats, and they fill them twice a week.
Wow.
How disturbing is that?
Wow. That is.
But I had a chance to meet Hitchens, and as I was walking up to the podium to shake his hand, they started their prayer. And I don't know, I felt a holy water garlic kind of combination, and I'm like, I have to get out of here. And then the only other opportunity that I ever had was his last public event.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say, I was standing next to him. He was within arm's reach.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my opportunity to talk to him. And he was talking to a little girl, like an 8-year-old girl, who was asking about a reading list. And it was a beautiful thing when he says, well, I would read this, 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 and this. And that 8 or 10-year-old girl said, I've already read those. Oh my God, I love this girl.
Wow. That's so impressive.
And so Hitchens turns and his eyes met mine. I put out my hand to shake his, and Dawkins was standing on the other side of me and immediately swept him up to take him to the hospital. And that was my opportunity. I never actually got to speak to the man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was his last public appearance. I was the last person that might have met Hitchens in that moment. And so when Dawkins showed up later at the event, I walked up and told him that, and I remember Dawkins saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yes. In that lovely accent.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, so let's see. What else can I say about I am?
Yeah, we have been at this a little bit longer than than the expectations that I gave you. But I want to thank you for being on as long as you have. If there is anything else that you can go on about, we've got over 600 people listening right now, and I'm sure they're interested.
I'm trying to think if there's. I mean, the only thing I can say is it's just amazing to see someone who clearly, I mean, she was she was supposed to be the fifth horse person.
Yep.
I think in that video that they did, the Four Horsemen, she was supposed to be there, and I think some circumstances made it impossible for her to get there. So there would have been a fifth horse person. And one of the things that I find absolutely shocking in the interview, and good for Alex for getting it out there, is that in all the time that she was an atheist, it's so clear to me that she never knew anything of Christian history, of Christian doctrine. I still don't think she understands the Trinity and that Jesus is the God of the Old Testament who told you to, that you could keep slaves and just how badly you could beat them and how the young girls.
How you can do a child sex trafficking in Numbers 31.
Yes. How you can, how if your new bride doesn't bleed on her wedding night, you take her to the, her dad, and then they take her to the city gate and stone her to death. She doesn't seem to know that so much of the bad stuff from Islam comes from that. And then the worst of it, what she doesn't know is that the worst thing ever comes right from Jesus, who gave us the idea of hell and eternal torment. And that's
an idea that is so over the top absurd that I had to give it up when I was not even a teenager before I realized that hell is so ridiculous that I can't even believe in that.
Well, this is one of the reasons I'm thankful I grew up as a Mormon, because as you know, Mormonism doesn't have a hell. So there's no hell, and I never had to suffer any of that trauma.
It's in the Book of Mormon, but who reads that?
Yes. Yes. But you got the three heavens, and I don't mind going to the Walmart of heaven. The Nordstrom's would be nice, but I'll take the Walmart. If it's better than this place, hey, how bad can it be? So, yeah, she just knows nothing about it. She doesn't know that it's Jesus that gives us the idea of hell. I think hell combined with the idea that you go there simply for not believing a proposition that you have no choice in being able to believe or not, is the idea responsible for more evil in the West, at least, than any other idea, because that's the idea that gave us the heresy hunters and the Inquisition and the hatred for others that don't share your point of view. Because your point of view, if I'm teaching something that doesn't align, I'm not just going to harm you. I can harm your children. I can bring your children to eternal fire. So I got to go. And that's what they literally did. People had to go because they were teaching heresy, which was going to end, people up in heaven. So it's just the most horrific idea. And it's all out of, gentle Jesus, meek and mild, as Hitch used to refer to him.
I wish I had opportunity to talk to Ian, but the frustrating thing is that in the handful of times that I have run into her, I realize she never spoke to me, ever.
Right.
I would say something to her. I would invite her to the party. I would whenever I run into her, it's only been like 4 times.
Right.
But I mean, she would smile very pleasantly, but she never said anything to me.
Right. Well, I
don't feel that I would ever be able to, if I ever had, how would I even have audience with her to explain everything she said in that interview with Alex O'Connor? They're like, you have no idea what the fuck Christianity even is.
Right, right.
And if you think that Christianity, that being Christian is better at defeating Islam, no. One magical mysticism cult to fight another magical mysticism cult is not the way to do that. You need secularism against all of the magical mystical cults.
I call that fighting hellfire with hellfire. And there's another video you can look up, fighting hellfire with hellfire. You're absolutely right. I would say this: I will give Ian the benefit of the doubt because I know what she's been through. I mean, this woman had serious shit after leaving religion that she's had to deal with. Her friend Theo Van Gogh, who she made a movie with, was murdered.
Yeah.
Murdered in cold blood, in daylight, broad daylight, for creating the movie that she created with him. And she has been basically under fatwa ever since leaving Islam and coming out. So she's always had to have bodyguards protecting her. I can't imagine what that's like to live with, even though, I mean, I'm sure you and I've gotten death threats. I'm sure you have as well.
No.
If no one, you didn't get Dennis Marcuse's death threats back in the early. Oh man, his death threats were
I feel like I'm like the only guy that never got death threats.
Because they look at you and go, "Oh, I'm not messing with that. I'm not."
I don't know what to put it. What I have noticed is that absolutely every single female activist I know,
yes,
has dozens of death threats and rape threats and other sorts of threats,
absolutely.
like in any given year. I never get one.
Yeah, I see. I think they're afraid. I think they're afraid if they sent you a death threat, you would track them down and do terrible, terrible things to them.
Or worse, I wouldn't give a shit. Show up at my fucking door.
Yes.
Then we'll talk.
Yes, exactly. When everyone was getting the death threats from Dennis Marcuse back in, I want to say 2008, maybe 2009, and they were vile. I spoke in Toronto, as I'm told to say it. And as I was leaving Dan Dennett's lecture, I came out and there were two people talking, and one of them was getting really heated. And I went over to see what was going on. I thought maybe I can tamper this down a bit. And I said I think the only thing I said to this guy was, "Hey man, let's just take it down a notch and talk, like decent, rational people here." And he told me to go fuck myself. And then he walked off. And then someone came up to me and said, "I can't believe you were just talking with Dennis Marcuse." And I was like, I had no idea that was him. And then it terrified me. And if I remember correctly, he was arrested shortly thereafter and put into an institution for mental illness.
Yeah, I don't really know why I haven't gotten the death threats. I guess people don't realize that it wouldn't mean a whole lot to me. I'm not really afraid. Okay, I mean, I'm 62 years old. I'm going to have to go one way or another.
Right.
And actually going out for something I believe in, which is rationality, and actual truth and science and all of that, I don't mind. So that would be a better way to go than some I can think of.
Can I just say real quickly, fuck you for being older than me and looking younger than me? Can I do that?
I'm a creepy old bastard. I was a really good-looking man in my youth.
I'll bet.
I have to read a couple more comments before you run off.
Yes.
I love this name. His Zotness offers $2 and says, "Hey there, Mr. D. Like to meet you someday."
Awesome. I don't get out much anymore.
I've met Mr. Deity in Las Vegas. I met him in Melbourne, Australia. I've had the man in my car.
Yes.
Yep, at one point. And I'm very proud of those things. And then we have JCal, who offers $5 and says, "Thanks for what you do. Followed you for a while now. Praise Aaron." Got too many A's there. Wrong pronunciation. But thank you.
By the way, his Zotness is one of my patrons. I recognize. I think that's who I think it is.
Okay.
I would love to meet. I've met one patron. I've actually met with a patron a couple times now. She's from Texas, in fact. So awesome.
I don't know that I'm going to be saying this right. Strangeosity offers $10 and says, "Atheist here. Every time I go on a Reddit about quitting alcohol or nicotine or whatever, people chime in with 'Jesus set me free from X' comments. What's the deal with that? How does that work?"
Well, yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I was going to try to make something up in the deity.
I tried to explain to somebody that called me in a desperate moment. The only time this person has ever called me in my life, they called me in a desperate moment, says, I'm an alcoholic. I don't know how to quit. What do I do? And I said, well, it doesn't matter what, higher power you pray to. It ultimately comes down to you. It really has to be your conviction. You understand what your health is. You understand what your family needs are. This is a point of resolution where you have to say, I just can't keep fucking everything up in my life. It's all down to me.
Right.
And that person decided to thank Jesus.
I have a couple friends who are alcoholics who still go to AA, and they will they're both atheists, and they will tell people, if you need AA, go to AA. Just ignore the higher power stuff, or you be your own higher power. You can figure it out. But if you really do need the help with something like that, there's also Rational Recovery. I think they're still around. But if you need the help, just get the help.
There's also Satanic Sobriety. But on my own perspective, I decided ever since the election that I'm going to practice alcoholism until I get really good at it.
It's a good path. It's a good path. I'm not paying attention. I'm out of it. The next 4 years, I'm not paying attention. I'm canceling my cable. I'm not watching news. I don't want to see this man. I can't bear looking at his face or hearing that stupid voice. And
you know what? I got to tell you, I've been, for the last decade or more, I've been a professional political activist. Yeah. And ever since the election, I unplugged. I can't watch anymore.
It's just too horrible to realize.
And everybody who tells me that I don't know politics, no, I know more the fuck than you do, or at least I do right up until the election. After that, I don't know what happened since then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've kind of taken a break. Okay, so
I do, by the way. I do. And I think it's that this country is as awful as I hoped it wasn't. That's the God's honest truth. And I know people are going to shit on me for that. But the misogyny and the racism and the lack of compassion towards our fellow people, which has never been a hallmark of America, the lack of compassion, the racism and the misogyny has always been a hallmark. But it's as bad. We're not getting better. It's not getting better.
I want to collaborate with you eventually. I mean, we've been talking about this for 10 years. I want to collaborate with you eventually on something. Yes. I swear I can play characters. I can act. I can do voices.
I'm sure
Let me do something on your channel, before one of us dies.
Yes, we will.
Meantime,
definitely do that.
And by the way, everybody check out Mr. Deity's channel. His new stuff is good. His old stuff is great. All of that. Just check out anything you can. I got a couple more comments to read. Benway23 offers $5 and says, thank you both for your work. John Gavin offers $5 and says, I'm sub to you both as well as Alex, Stephen, and a whole bunch of others. I'm very thankful for what all of you do. Thank you so much for that.
Awesome.
And by the way, Mr. D, you ever get over to the UK again? We got to set you up a meeting with Alex.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
Fucking brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So then the last one is Marduk. Marduk 1 offers $4.99. It says, Aron, what type of music are you into? Really? You have to ask?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like exactly bluegrass, is it? I mean, come on. I think my current favorite band might be In This Moment, but I think that they haven't done anything in a couple of years, so I'm going to have to find a new black metal band to be into.
Yeah. I spent 5 years trying to be Eddie Van Halen and got really close. But now I'm almost all jazz. I'm just a jazz guy now.
Jazz. Oh, that hurts me. I could never manage jazz. You got the one guy who's playing the whiskers on the drums, use actual drumsticks. And then there's the guy on the cello, and then there's the guy on the piano. And why the fuck are you all playing different songs? Play the same song.
Now, I have to, let me tell you, I don't love the eclectic jazz. I like the jazz that is more melodic. And, when I say jazz, I'm not talking, I mean, I do like some of that stuff too. But for the most part, that's not the stuff I listen to. My jazz is much more down to earth. And I like, for instance, I'm a huge fan of bossa nova and Brazilian jazz. So Antonio Carlos Jobim, Girl from Ipanema, the Stan Getz Gilberto album, that's one of my all-time favorites. And I play this stuff every day on my guitar and on my piano. So it's just really fun to play. And it's the most interesting music to me in terms of being a musician and knowing what to, but I can still shred. I can still totally shred. I get my Strat out and I have this little amp.
Okay.
This amp is about this big.
Topic.
Yeah.
Completely off topic. I'm always looking for 45 seconds of end credits scene or 3 to 5 seconds of opening credits where I want something, and this is the description that I give everybody. I want music that either sounds like the background theme of a Godzilla film or that sounds like Godzilla himself fighting other kaiju. Can you make Godzilla's roar on a guitar? I've had people try to write me music where I can hear the recording of Godzilla's roar that's mixed into the music. Like, I didn't ask for a recording. I want you to do it with the fucking whammy bar.
Interesting. Well, there's a challenge.
All right, I got to read a couple more comments. Let me see. Mubarak, there's a man I respect. Mubarak 9.99 says, as an ex-Muslim from the Middle Eastern, trying to help a community of ex-believers, Muslims and Christians. I guess that's supposed to be here. Take is terrible for a lot of us because from both religions. That's not written very well. Mubarak is normally much better spoken than that. But I'd be happy to. I would love to. Mubarak, reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you about what you just posted. All right, and then Pattern Machine offers $6.66 and says, it is more than just the next 4 years. There can be clones of the orange guy. And worse, there can be the original orange guy. If he doesn't die because the ancient evil never does,
right?
It could still be him. You know that one of the goals is to keep him in power. And if he becomes too much of an embarrassment, they simply remove him and replace him with one of their own plants.
Right.
So the last election that we had might actually be, there's a possibility, I'm not saying that this is necessarily true, but it might actually be the last free and fair election we ever get.
Yeah. The thing that scares me most is like a Trump figure who's actually brilliant. That's
if we
terrifying.
Didn't have it completely insane and utterly bewilderingly stupid, imagine how much worse shit would have been.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we have Pattern Machine offer $6.60. Oh no, I already read that one. Johannes Brahms says $5. Thank you. Says, I see you felt left out, not getting any threats. So let me just say, I want to finish off your bottle of rum. Come and
them's
try.
Fighting words. Yeah, them's fighting words.
Zachary Henrik offers $5 and says, just catching this at the end and need to justify giving you money. Not really. So what is the worst animal?
What is the worst animal?
The Yorkie.
Does that include insects? The Yorkie. Does that include insects? I mean, I would go immediately. I would go immediately with the
mosquito. I knew a Yorkie who tried to challenge a Rottweiler to a duel.
Isn't it the mosquito? Isn't it the mosquito that kills more humans every year than any other creature on the planet?
Yeah, I could go with mosquito. That's a good guess. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Horrifying.
I'm going to have to let you go because I asked you to come on for only an hour. And we've had a wonderful turnout for this show.
I would
I don't know how you've been able to keep up because the chat has been bouncing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much praise to the people that we've mentioned that we respect, Stephen and Alex, for having done that interview. I'm impressed that Ion did the interview, and I'm sure that she never would speak to me before. I'm sure she's not going to now,
Right.
which is sad.
Let me just finish by saying that both of them have either a book out or a book coming, and which is why I've referred to it as a conversion.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be nice about it.
Brian, Mr. Deity, thank you so much for being on tonight.
Always a pleasure. I would happily spend eternity with you.
All right. Peter, take us out.